The clock ticked softly in the kitchen, a metronome to the fading pulse of the day. August 2025 draped itself over the suburban house like a heavy shawl, the air thick with the scent of warm grass and the last gasps of summer. Elena, 38, moved through the space with a practiced grace, her bare feet whispering against the cool tiles. The light was dimming now, a soft amber glow seeping through the windows, painting the walls in hues of honey and shadow. She wore a simple sundress, its hem brushing her thighs, the fabric clinging faintly to her skin in the humidity. Routine held her here, dinner simmering on the stove, the clink of a spoon against a pot. But beneath it, something restless stirred, a shadow she couldn't name. The house was quiet, save for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the old wooden beams settling into the night. Liam was upstairs, her stepson, 19, wiry and sharp-edged, a boy teetering on the cusp of something more. She'd raised him, in a way, since she'd married his father 4 years ago. Meals prepared, laundry folded, late-night talks about school. But lately, the air between them had shifted, thickened, as though the walls themselves held their breath. She pushed the thought down, stirring the sauce with a wooden spoon, its steam curling upward like a secret unfurling. It was then she heard it, a faint rustle from the hallway. Her head tilted, curiosity tugging at her. She set the spoon aside, wiping her hands on a dish towel, and padded toward the sound. The hallway stretched before her, a narrow vein of shadow and light, the hardwood cool beneath her soles. His bedroom door was ajar, a sliver of golden warmth spilling out, beckoning her closer. She didn't mean to look. She didn't mean to stop. But there he was. Liam, caught in the act of changing, his shirt halfway over his head, his torso bare and bathed in the soft glow of a bedside lamp. Her breath snagged in her throat, a sharp, involuntary hitch. His frame was lean, taut with youth, the lines of his ribs faintly visible beneath smooth, sun-kissed skin. The lamp cast shadows that danced across his chest, pooling in the hollows of his collarbone, and for a moment, she couldn't move, couldn't think. The sight of him, unaware, unguarded, lit something inside her, a spark that flared hot and dangerous in her chest. She pressed a hand to the wall, steadying herself, her fingers trembling against the peeling paint. This was wrong. She knew it, felt it in the marrow of her bones, the weight of the word stepmother like a chain around her neck. Yet her eyes lingered, tracing the curve of his shoulder, the way his hair fell in dark, damp strands across his forehead. She should have turned away, should have retreated to the safety of the kitchen, the familiar hum of domesticity. But her feet stayed rooted, her pulse a traitor thudding in her ears. He pulled the shirt free, tossing it aside, and stretched his arms overhead, oblivious to her gaze. The motion was casual, careless, but it carved itself into her mind, each muscle shifting beneath his skin, each breath he took igniting a heat she couldn't name. Her mouth went dry, her lips parting as though to speak, though no words came. Only sensation, only the ache blooming low in her belly, forbidden and alive. The moment broke when he turned slightly, his profile sharp against the light, and she slipped back into the shadows, her heart hammering against her ribs. She retreated to the kitchen, her movements mechanical now, stirring, tasting, adjusting the flame. But her mind was elsewhere, tangled in that glimpse of him. The scent of basil and garlic filled the air, grounding her, yet her skin prickled with the memory of what she'd seen. She pressed her palms to the counter, the cool granite a shock against her fevered hands, and closed her eyes. Guilt clawed at her, sharp and insistent. He was her husband's son, her responsibility. But beneath the guilt, something darker pulsed. A yearning she couldn't unfeel, a pull she couldn't unsee. Dinner was nearly ready when he came downstairs. She heard his footsteps first, a soft thud against the stairs, and her body tensed, every nerve alight. He entered the kitchen, his presence filling the space like a storm rolling in, quiet but undeniable. He wore a faded t-shirt now, the fabric clinging faintly to his frame, and his hair was still damp from a shower, the scent of his soap cutting through the air. Cedar, clean, intoxicating. She kept her eyes on the pot, stirring with a focus that felt forced, but her awareness of him was a living thing, wrapping around her like smoke. "Hey," he said, his voice low, casual. She nodded, a tight smile flickering across her lips, but she didn't trust herself to look at him. Not yet. He moved past her to grab a glass from the cabinet, and in that fleeting second, their bodies aligned, too close, too charged. Her arm brushed his, a graze of skin on skin, and the contact was a jolt, electric and searing. She froze, her fingers tightening around the spoon, her breath shallowing. Did he feel it too? The air seemed to thicken, the space between them shrinking until it was nothing but heat and possibility. He stepped back, filling his glass with water, and the moment slipped away, fragile as a thread snapping. But it lingered in her. The warmth of his arm against hers, the faint roughness of his skin, the way her pulse raced long after he'd moved to the table. She plated the food, pasta glistening with sauce, steam curling upward, and set it before him, her hands steady but her mind a storm. As she sat across from him, the table a flimsy barrier, her thoughts spiraled. Guilt and desire warred within her, each touch of his gaze a spark against dry tinder. Her body hummed, alive with the taboo pulsing beneath her composure, and she wondered, dreaded, craved, where this night might lead. The night pressed against the house like a lover, humid and unrelenting, the air heavy with the promise of rain that never came. August 2025 had stretched thin, its final days clinging to the suburban quiet, with a sticky, restless grip. Elena stood in the kitchen, the faint hum of the ceiling fan stirring the stillness, her sundress damp against her skin. The clock glowed 10:17, its digits a silent witness to the hour since dinner, hours spent cleaning, pacing, avoiding the pull that had haunted her since that fleeting graze in this very room. Liam was still here, somewhere in the house, his presence a thread tugging at her edges, unraveling her resolve with every breath she took. She wiped the counter for the third time, the cloth dragging slow and deliberate, but her mind was a tangle of heat and shadow. The memory of his arm against hers lingered, a phantom touch that refused to fade. Her body felt foreign, alive, treacherous, each nerve sparking with a need she'd buried beneath years of duty. The air thickened, charged with something unspoken, and she knew she couldn't outrun it. Not tonight. Not when the house felt so small, the walls closing in with every thud of her pulse. He appeared then, a silhouette in the doorway, his frame backlit by the dim hallway glow. Shirtless now, the heat having stripped him down to loose shorts, his skin gleamed faintly with sweat. She froze, the cloth slipping from her fingers, her eyes tracing the lines of him, lean, taut, achingly real. He stepped forward, barefoot, the floor creaking beneath his weight, and the space between them shrank to nothing. She should have moved, should have turned away, but her feet stayed planted, her breath shallowing as he reached past her for a glass on the counter. The moment broke open when she moved. Instinct, not thought. Her hand lifting to rest against his chest as she slid by. It wasn't accidental this time. Her palm pressed flat, fingers splaying against the warmth of his skin, and she lingered, the contact a bold, trembling dare. His heartbeat thudded beneath her touch, quick and alive, and her own pulse surged to match it. He stilled, the glass forgotten, and the air crackled, electric with the weight of what she'd done. She didn't pull away. Couldn't. The heat of him seeped into her, igniting a fire she'd tamped down too long. Their eyes met, his dark and searching, hers wide with a mix of fear and hunger. The kitchen dissolved, the hum of the fan, the scent of lingering basil, replaced by the gravity of him, the pull she couldn't deny. Her hand slid upward, tentative, tracing the ridge of his collarbone, and his breath hitched, a soft sound that unraveled her last thread of restraint. He stepped closer, closing the gap, and her world tilted as his hands found her waist. Hesitant, yet sure. The touch was a spark, a fuse lit, and boundaries crumbled like ash in the wind. They moved as one, a slow collision, drifting from the kitchen into the shadowy living room. The couch loomed ahead, its worn fabric a silent witness, as he guided her down, his body following, pressing her into the cushions. The air was thick here, the darkness a cocoon that swallowed sound, leaving only sensation. His lips found hers, soft at first, then insistent, and she melted beneath the pressure, her mouth parting to let him in. The taste of him, salt and heat, flooded her, a wave that drowned every thought but this. Her hands roamed his back, fingers digging into the taut muscle, feeling the shiver that rippled through him at her touch. Her skin prickled as his hands slid beneath her dress, the fabric bunching at her hips, his palms rough against the smoothness of her thighs. Each movement was deliberate, intoxicating, a dance of need and surrender. She arched into him, her body answering what her mind couldn't voice, and the rhythm of their breaths synced, a jagged, desperate harmony. The living room pulsed with their heat, the shadows deepening every sensation, the scrape of his stubble against her neck, the weight of his chest pinning her, the warmth pooling low in her core, liquid and insistent. Her inner world shifted, splintered. Desire melded with vulnerability, a raw, exposed thing that terrified her even as it bound her to him. She felt the texture of his hair as her fingers threaded through it, damp and soft, the strands catching the faint light from a distant street lamp. His mouth trailed lower, lips brushing the hollow of her throat, and a sound escaped her, a sigh, a plea, lost in the hum of the night. The taboo pulsed beneath it all, a dark current that heightened every touch, every shudder. He was hers in a way he shouldn't be, and she was his in a way she couldn't undo. Time stretched, elastic and infinite, as their bodies pressed closer, the couch creaking faintly beneath them. His hands mapped her, learning her curves with a reverence that broke her open, and she let go, fully, finally, surrendering to the tide. The intimacy was transformative, a forging of something new in the ashes of what had been. Her chest tightened, not with guilt now, but with the weight of connection, the unspoken shift that tethered her to this moment. She felt him everywhere, his breath against her ear, his fingers tracing her spine, and the world beyond the shadows ceased to exist. When it ended, it wasn't an end, but a pause, their breaths slowing, their bodies still entwined. She lay beneath him, her dress tangled, her skin flushed and alive, and stared into the dark. The stakes had deepened, the forbidden threading through her veins like a drug. She didn't speak, neither did he, but the silence said enough. Her hand rested on his chest again, feeling the steady thump of his heart, and she knew this was no longer just a spark. It was a fire, consuming, and she was willingly lost in its blaze.